Hello and welcome back to All Things Money. I'm your host, David Blain. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great show lined up. Had a good first segment talking about a tax tip, tax filing season here in 2013, claiming the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit. It's a good credit. It's available no matter what your income is. There's very specific rules to qualify, but if you have a child under 13 that you provide dependent care or even a disabled adult, you should really check with your preparer or give us a call, contact us, and we'll make sure you're straight on that. If you missed that segment, head on over to our website, dlblain.com. We'll post archive copies of the show there in about a week or so. If you're trying to file your taxes, you may want to get the answer right away. Anyway, so we introduced the topic at the end of the last segment of the Congressional Budget Office. Now, if you're President Obama or President Bush or Congressman Jones or Senator Hagan, as we have here in North Carolina, and you have to, maybe you're not an expert in economic policy, as none of those people I just mentioned are. You don't know a lot of this stuff. Most congressmen and senators don't. They rely on staffers, people on their staff that they either hire or lobbyists, frankly. A lot of them rely on lobbyists. But the majority of them, when it comes down to it, whether they have their own personal advisors or lobbyists or paid, is they all end up looking at the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, is billed as sort of a nonpartisan referee. When the Democrats say, oh, well, this is going to save, $100 billion over the next 10 years, and the Republicans say it's going to save, $50 billion over the next 10 years. Well, people kind of look to the CBO to determine, what may be the true answer. Which, by the way, I've got to segue into this. I heard an advertisement the other day by the AARP just lambasting the changed CPI proposal for Medicare. And this just goes to show you really have to know what you're talking about. It was kind of like that Maxine Waters talking about how the sequestration was going to lose 171 million jobs in America. And of course, there aren't even 171 million people working in America. Well, the same thing, this AARP ad, it comes on and it says, oh, this proposal, it's going to slash benefits, slash Social Security benefits for our seniors. Everybody's going to be eating dog food and they're going to be kicked out of their houses. And it says it's going to slash $130 billion over the next 10 years from the budget. I'm thinking, okay, 130 billion, 10 years, that's 13 billion a year. That's a rounding error for the federal budget. Anyway, so that's what we try to do on the show, is give you the facts so that when you hear something like, you think, oh my God, $130 billion, that's terrible. My mother's going to be put out on the street eating dog food. When you really break it down, $13 billion out of the federal budget every year, it's a rounding error. Anyway, this kind of relates to that. So the Congressional Budget Office, people rely on the Congressional Budget Office to put out the information on budgeting, projections, and things like that. People like me that are in the business of investing and looking at economics and things like that, we have to make certain assumptions, and there are certain assumptions that you just can't, you don't know what the future holds. But if you look back historically, you can do some massaging of the assumptions, and you can pretty much assume that there's a business cycle, that every so often we're going to get in a war, every so often there's going to be a recession, there's going to be natural disasters, there's going to be Iran, there's going to be North Korea, there's going to be all sorts of different things, tsunamis, hurricanes, things like that. If you look at the Congressional Budget Office projections, they always assume that we're going to have the longest expansion ever. They never build in a recession to their projections. They always assume, and so for example, let's deal with some facts here. I printed out some of the things. So the latest 10-year budget projections came out in February. So they project out 10-year budget, and they say that and if you look at this, the current expansion that we're in will break the record for the longest expansion ever, because their long-term projections show that the current expansion will never end, ever. And it makes this prediction every year. It doesn't matter if we're doing good or we're in a depression. the way they do their budget projections is wherever we are, they immediately return to some sort of trend line, and then they just go that way forever. It's the biggest mistake. Actually, I see a lot of financial planners do it. In my industries, they say, oh, well, you're going to earn 8%, forever on this portfolio. It just does not happen that way. And so if you look at the CBO projections, the thing that Congress and the White House and all these people make all these ridiculous assumptions of cost savings and expenses and revenues, they assume that the business cycle just flat doesn't exist. So for example, they say that the economy will accelerate to above trend growth in 2014 and remain at this heightened growth rate until 2021 when it settles back to the trend growth assumption of 2% a year. The peak growth will occur at 4.4% in 2016. Now, you may think, well, yeah, they have it going up and then settling down. Yeah, but they make the same projection every year. If you look at 2011, 2012, all the way back to 2009, they've been projecting the same thing. Well, we're going to have above trend growth, and then it's going to come back to normal trend of 2% per year. And so they always make this same assumption that the economy will accelerate rapidly out of a recession to full employment of output, peaking at an unusually rapid growth rate, 4.4%, before settling back into this sort of arbitrary, normal 2% growth rate. We're coming up on our second break. We got a lot more to cover on this topic. We need to get sort of the punchline, so I hope you'll come back and join us right after the break.